just look at the chart before you. I'm calling this person Mystery Woman 1, and a little bit different approach than I've used in the past, in the sense that I'm going to be not only displaying the both North and South Indian style charts, but I'm also going to be displaying simultaneously both Navamsha and Dashamsha. Arun, give me some feedback. Can you see these charts clearly on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And so let's just give it a couple more minutes. And for those who are listening, you'll see an email from me about this when I send out the recording to this session. But because of some overcommitment of my time towards the second half of January, the article that is for February won't come out exactly on February 1, which is just tomorrow. It's more likely that you'll receive it next week. So I would just ask people to expect not an article tomorrow, but next weekend, and thanks for your patience with that. How many participants do we have now?
We have 13.
Okay, well, it is start time, so I think we could get started. And do we have any of our panelists, either Girish or Pete Dawson, were going to be panelists? Are they present yet?
I'm checking right now. I'll get a couple people on screen.
Okay.
We don't have the people that you named, but I'm going to get probably Katrina and maybe Rohit or somebody.
Okay. I'm sure they'll be, they signed up for the panelists. They seem to be very keen on wanting to do that.
Okay.
So I expect we will see them here shortly then. But if we have Ekaterina and then Rohit, that would be fine as well. So shall we begin?
Sure.
Okay. So everyone, you see the chart before you. I'm identifying them as Mystery Woman 1. And as always, this presentation or this webinar discussion will be focused on the learning points that were given in my article, The Pillar of Life, which of course was on evaluating the Lagna and the Lagna Lord, but also on some certain yogas that are related specifically to the ascendant, very often by dispositorship. Hello there, Ekaterina. I see you. Welcome. Although I think your mic is muted, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So like always in these webinars, I would ask you to look at this chart and think about and identify what might be called distinctive features, prominent, significant features of this particular chart. Let's talk, and of course that would include yogas. So let us begin there. Anyone? Could I have some responses about that?
Yeah, Ekaterina, either you can try to help, or I don't have anything being typed on the screen. But if somebody wants to say something, please type it, or please raise your hand.
Could you put Ekaterina?
All right, Radhika, you're on.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, Radhika. Nice to hear you.
Okay, so I see that Mars is exalted in this chart, and there is also an exchange between the 4th and 5th lords.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's start with the exchange. That's a rather significant exchange, is it not? It's an angle trine exchange. So, and also, as you've heard me say over and over again in my articles, when planets exchange, my view on that is that they can give now their results as if they're in their own sign. So we have a powerful angle trine exchange between Mercury and Venus, giving Raja Yoga. Very good. And of course, she identified the 10th Lord Mars as being exhibited. What else? Anyone?
Rohit is talking about a 1-9 combo.
A 1-9 combo. Yes. So one of the better Raja Yoga is actually what you might be calling a superior Raja Yoga, given, I talk about this in my article, Golden Keys to Jyotish, is the combination of Venus and Saturn from Aquarius or even Capricorn Lagna, because of course Venus is the Yogacaraka planet, ruling 4 and 9 in this case, and Saturn is the Lagna Lord, and here they fall in a very good disposition along the 5-11 axis. So yes, this is a excellent Raja Yoga in this chart. Hold on. Before we go any further there, what makes this Raja Yoga, besides the fact that it's the angle triangle combination, what makes this Raja Yoga particularly powerful? Do you see any factor that would give it strength? Because remember, in qualifying yogas, we always want to see their strength. What do you say about that? What makes this combination very strong?
I see a response from Rohit and Lena. Rohit is saying 511 axis, and Lena is
511
saying
axis?
Mercury Venus Parivartana.
Yes, we talked about the exchange. So, but is there anything else that helps qualify this yoga?
Yeah, I see Vargottama Venus, and Saturn is powerful like in its own sign in the Navamsha.
So, well, I think you might be confusing Navamsha with Dashamsha.
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
The comment that you're making is an excellent comment. We see in Dashamsha that these planets have great strength by virtue of the fact that Venus is Vargottama relative to that division, and Saturn is bonus sign, and they again fall in excellent houses in that particular division. Now, but is there another reason Venus in particular gains strength, besides the fact that it's involved in an exchange? Is there any other factor that gives this planet strength?
Yeah, we have comments coming in from Arvind first, followed by Lena.
Wonderful.
Go ahead, Arvind.
Right. Venus is on the Lagna of Navamsha.
Well, yes, but what's its condition? What's Venus's condition? It's in its own sign.
Lena, go ahead.
That's the thing that I wanted people.
Okay, Venus, hello, Mark. Hello, everybody. Venus, 9th Lord, is in the 5th house. It's aspected by Jupiter. Jupiter is aspecting.
Well, what I want, you're correct, Lena. What I wanted to everyone to see is that this Venus has a number of sources of strength. It's involved in the exchange. It is Vargottama in the Dashamsha, and it's most importantly, it's in its own sign in Navamsha. So Venus can give its results very, very powerfully. And what's particularly good about this Saturn? Does anybody see anything particularly good about this Saturn? And you kind of hinted at it, Lena, but I'd like to get a response on that. What's particularly good about this Saturn?
Yes, Radhika?
Yeah, the Lagna Lord Saturn reveals the aspect of two benefics.
Wonderful. There's a reason I'm showing you this chart, and of course it's related to what the article is all about, where we're talking about the Lagna Lord coming under the strong influence of natural benefics. Here, of course, it gets the mutual aspect of a very powerful Venus, but then it's also both in Jupiter's sign and receiving the aspect of Jupiter. There are many things that create a strong sambandha, a strong connection between planets, but one of which students oftentimes miss is when a planet is in the sign of another planet and also aspected by that planet. In this case, there's not a mutual glance between Saturn and Jupiter. Jupiter is having a very, very powerful influence on this Saturn, both by dispositorship and by aspect, which then really enhances and increases the quality of the Venus-Saturn Raja Yoga. Okay, so we're doing great. Anybody want to identify some other very significant feature of this birth chart that also includes Venus that might contribute to the kind of results it would give in its Mahadasha?
I had Georgie. Sorry, I had Georgie asking, is this woman a multi-millionaire?
Yes. yes, they are. Well, first, my response would be, is why would you say that? And Ekaterina will come back to you. But, you know, the answer is yes, but why might this person say that? Who said that?
Georgie, go ahead.
Oh, Georgie. Georgie, could you comment? No, is his mic active?
Yeah, Georgie, your mic is active.
Okay. Do you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes?
Yeah, so there's multiple combinations for wealth. First, you have the first Saturn in the 11th house. Okay, so that's then you have aspect between Saturn and Venus, which is Venus is the 9th. Saturn is the first one. It's another Dana Yoga, and that's on the 5-11 axis, which is very important axis for wealth.
You're breaking actually.
Okay, well, I will repeat what he said. Georgie, you're seeing very clearly, you know, I congratulate you on that. If you would mute your mic again, or Arun, if you can mute.
Sure.
No, obviously for anybody with Aquarius Lagna, the Trian Lords, 159, are of course Saturn, Mercury, and Venus. And of course, they're all very well placed here. And the Saturn-Venus combination is a 1-9 combination, giving Dana Yoga. But what really contributes to this here is Jupiter. Of course, for anybody with Aquarius Lagna, Jupiter has a particular wealth-giving significance because it rules the second element. Therefore, to have this Lagna Lord Saturn in the 11th under the double influence of Jupiter, both by dispositorship and aspect, again, the same way it boosts up the quality of the Raja Yoga, it boosts up the quality of the Dana Yoga. Now, look at the degrees of the moon, and somebody tell me in what period this person was born and what the approximate balance of dasha was.
I think we have inputs coming in from Rohit.
Okay. So?
Rohit, go ahead.
Can I get a response here?
Oh, there's a Chandra Adi Yoga that Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus are involved in. Jupiter is brilliantly placed there, and its depositor exalted, and Mercury and Venus are obviously in an exchange. So all three planets are in great dignity.
Excellent, excellent, Rohit. One of the most, maybe the most significant feature of this chart is a extremely powerful Chandra Adi Yoga, which when it's a very reliable yoga for bringing both, you know, great status, high elevated status, and again, wealth, under certain conditions, of course. You always have to be qualified. Now, even though the moon is both in its sign of debility and also Gandanta, it's also a very bright moon here, just past fullness, as you can see that. And then Rohit correctly identified that, you know, all the, first of all, the best Chandradi yogas, the ultimate Chandradi yogas is where the benefics, Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus all fall in the 6th, 7th, or 8th house from the moon, which is what we've seen here. We've already talked about the strength of Mercury and Venus in particular, but Rohit pointed out that Jupiter should be in the sign of a great friend here, and its dispositor is exalted. And it's with an exalted planet. So this is a rather superior Chandra Adi Yoga and is probably the most distinctive feature of the chart. Back to my question, what dasha was this person born in, and approximately what was the balance of dasha at birth, and how can we see that? Anyone?
They're prepping.
Do we have any answers for that?
Not so far.
Okay, so
we have answered from Shrikant, who is saying Mercury dasha, and Leena saying Anuradha.
Okay, so they were born in Yestra Nakshatra, which is the Venus ruled nakshatra,
right,
which actually ends at 0 degrees Sagittarius. So they were born just at the very, very end of the Mercury period, which of course means that was followed by the 7 years of Ketu, which means around maybe 8 years old, they're going to do what? They're going to start the Mahadasha of Venus.
Right.
So you see that, at a pretty young age, they're going to activate all the yogas that are involved in, that Venus is involved in. The superior Raja yogas, the superior Dana yoga, and the superior Chandra Adi yoga, right? So does anybody recognize who this chart is?
I think this is the singer Adele.
You are absolutely correct, Ekaterina. And can you inform the group who gave me this chart?
Well, yeah, I was the first one to introduce you to this chart. Yes.
Yes, it was actually Ekaterina during one of our, well, I think it was in Delhi. It might have been in Delhi, India, that you shared this chart with me. Yes, very famous, usually successful, and successful at a very young age, singer, pop music star, Adele. What sub-periods within Venus do you think gave her particularly, where she first started to rise up and started to have this huge success? What would people have to say about that?
Rohit Shankar is saying Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Rohit is saying Saturn.
Sorry? Saturn. Venus, Saturn, did you say?
Only, Rohit, go ahead.
Hello?
Rohit, go ahead.
Saturn would be the obvious choice that I would go with. Don't know the timeline, but Saturn, because Saturn is in the Shamsha Lagna, is involved in Raj Yoga with Venus, the 1-9 combination, and yeah, I mean even from the moon, it's Saturn is the one that I would say.
And you'd be absolutely correct, Rohit, and it is the obvious choice, although Venus-Jupiter, the period and sub-period of 2 planets involved in the Chandra Adi Yoga, and I would note its position also in the Dashamsha, where it falls in a trine house in the Dashamsha, and it falls in actually a trine house from Venus itself, is the sub-period in which she made her debut album, which was hugely successful. But, just following that, look how the dasha sequence favors her. Just following that became the sub-period of Saturn. And then her second album was this enormous success. She won an unprecedented 6 Grammy Awards during the Venus-Saturn period. But then, again, just look at the sequence and how the sequence favors her. Of course, what follows Venus-Saturn? It's followed by Venus-Sun. Venus Mercury. I want you to note in particular when we highlighted Venus, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, the way in which they all fall in the trions from each other, from the Dashamsha. Again, you've probably heard me say this before, but I want to reiterate very often people don't see the results of yogas in the rashis that they might expect. And it's always a question of qualifying yoga. And one of the ways we qualify the yoga is to see these planets, disposition, planets forming the yoga, any kind of yoga, whether it be Raja Yoga, Chandra Yoga, or otherwise, see the disposition of these particular planets in key divisional charts, particularly Navamsha and Dashamsha for achievements, and that becomes a way of qualifying these. Venus, Saturn, as Rohit mentioned, just immediately stands out when you look at the Dashamsha because of their placements and their strength. Saturn being the Lagna Lord in the Lagna, in smooth Trikona sign, and Venus being Vargotama relative to that division. So,
Mark, there are a couple questions in this, if you don't mind. One is from Lena. She's asking if it is Mukuta Yoga.
Which yoga?
Mukuta.
Mukuta Yoga.
Yeah.
No. Well, it's a good thought, but the reason Mukuta Yoga happens when Jupiter falls in either the 6th or the 8th from the moon, but the condition is that it has to be either in its own sign or exalted. And since Jupiter is neither in this case, we would not see this as Mukuta Yoga, but really what Jupiter participates in with the moon is this very superior Chandra Yoga.
Next up we have Rohit Shankar. One more question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, Mark, what I want you to find out, we have seen a lot of charts, especially to do with, people who are artists and, in some way or the other related to either sports or movies or singers. And if you're an artist or a performer, predominantly we see the strong third house that we in most cases that we find. And we've always, in people who are doing performing arts, like movies and singing, we see the influence of Mercury, Moon, and Venus primarily on their Lagna or the third house or their 10th house. Is there a way that you can say that, okay, fine, if Jupiter is in the third house, or if Sun is in the third house, this might be, it might not be, say, a career in music, it might be a career in some other performing art. I don't know if my question is clear to you.
Well, I think I know what you're asking. How do you differentiate a performance that is, say, like more of a musical performance or dance performance or a acting performance? Is this what you're saying?
Yes. How do you differentiate between a musical performance rather than a sports performance, where I would think that the Mars and the Malefic would have more of an effect rather than Venus and Moon?
Well, that can be the case. That can be one differentiator, but then you have to see that in the context of the overall chart. And so, and at one point, actually, I'm going to do I'm going to do an article on the chart of a bunch of athletes where I'm going to address this question a little bit. But, it has to do with the influence of natural benefics, certain nakshatras, certain, rashis. It's not, I can't address that question in a real specific way, really, quite frankly. Now, one question I want to ask, this person is in a marriage-like situation with an individual, a man, and actually had a child not too long ago, not just very recent, but not too long ago. What periods and sub-period might you highlight as being one that would bring relationship into her life, potentially even marriage or a marriage-like situation? Does anything particularly stand out to anyone? Period and sub-period?
Venus Rahu is the answer from Lena.
Sun would definitely.
Rahu is the answer from Lena.
What's the answer from Lena?
Venus
Pardon?
Rahu. Venus Rahu.
Well, Venus and Rahu has this reputation that way. She was actually quite young at that time. Doesn't mean you can't have a relationship. And I actually don't know what happened during Venus Rahu that way for her. But it's not when she's got into the relationship that she's currently in with this man who she had a child with.
The sub period of sun.
Sub period of sun, and you say that, Rohit, because?
Because sun is the fifth lord in seventh lord in the D1 chart. It is aspecting the seventh house in the Navamsha. It is with the karka for relationship or marriage in the Navamsha. So I would say the sub period of sun.
And it's a good guess. Obviously, just based on what you're saying. Actually, I'll share with you that it was Venus-Saturn. And how could that be seen? How could Venus-Saturn bring this?
Because of Ketu.
Because of Ketu?
In the D9 chart, Ketu is in the seventh house in the D1 chart. And then if you go to the D9 chart, it aspects Saturn.
Well, I see the point you're making. That would be a little bit roundabout. It's actually much simpler than that. I would just ask you to apply dasha Lagna.
Radhika?
Yeah, from the dasha Lagna, Venus, Saturn is in the 7th house.
Aspected by the 7th Lord. Disposited and aspected by the 7th Lord Jupiter. So it was actually this period and sub-period. And, again, over and over again, I've emphasized you really have to see a chart from dasha Lagna, or you'll miss some, potential implications of certain periods and sub-periods. And very often I've seen that, a period that's falling 7th from the dasha Lord, it will bring a relationship, sometimes even marriage, into the person's chart. And then, so she got into this relationship. It wasn't an actual marriage, is my understanding, but they subsequently had a child together. Which period and sub-period would you see as being potentially fruitful for that?
Yes, Shrikant.
And so I'm going to put up the Saptamsha here, since the question is about childbirth. Radhika?
I have one question, if you don't mind.
I'll answer the question, but first let me get a response on my question about, a period and sub-period where she would have likely given birth.
Go ahead, Radhika.
Radhika?
Let's say Venus, Mercury.
Same Venus, Saturn.
Venus, Mercury.
Sorry? I didn't hear that. Say it again.
Is it the same sub-period?
It could have been, but it wasn't. All right. So I heard someone say Venus Mercury.
Yeah, I said Venus Mercury.
Okay, so it's a very obvious choice because Venus is in the 5th house and Mercury is the 5th lord, and they're involved in an exchange. But then look at the Saptamsha. The Saptamsha confirms it, where she's got Venus in the 5th house again in a neutral glance with Mercury, the 5th lord. And if memory serves, she gave birth in Venus, Mercury, Venus. I believe it was in October of 2012. So you see the timing here. All right, I think this gentleman had a question that I deferred until we got.
Yeah. Mark, this is Shrikant here. Hi, everyone.
Hello there.
Yeah, one quick question. I see Mercury debilitated both in the Navamsha and also in the Dasamsha, right?
Right.
And also it's in the 6th house in Navamsha and aspected by two malefics, Mars and Saturn. Does that weaken the Mercury? Even though
it's a very good question. It's a very good question because, again, Mercury is a component both of the Raja Yoga produced by the exchange and of the Chandra Adi Yoga, right? So it's a component of these, and again, I'm asking you to see underlying planets. But come to my article entitled An Enigma Wrapped in a Mystery. What do you notice about Mercury in the Navamsha? Anyone? What do you notice about Mercury in the Navamsha?
It is getting aspect by Jupiter, which is the house where.
Exchange.
Yeah, Ekaterina, you see it. It's Rohit, you're correct. It's getting the aspect of its lord, which can be a factor for cancellation, breaking at Banga. But the thing that really cancels it and actually reverses the kind of indications that it shows there in the Navamsha is the fact that it's involved in an exchange with Jupiter. See how all the planets have a strength. All the planets that form the Chandra Adi Yoga and participate in the Raja and Dana Yogas see the Navamsha, Venus in its own sign, and then Mercury and Jupiter involved in this exchange, even though Mercury is its notation sign. This changes that picture, as I've tried to point out over and over again in the one article. You see? Okay, so let's now move on. There are any other questions?
No questions yet, but I want to acknowledge Roberto and William Morris. They also get chocolates because they had the right answers as well.
Very good. I'm saying hello then to Roberto and Will Morris. Glad to have you involved. And feel free to get when Rohit would be happy to unmute your mic and you can contribute as well. Okay, I'm going to go now to what I'm going to be referring to as Mystery Man 1. I didn't give you these charts beforehand as I normally do, so you haven't seen them before. Actually, this is the second chart, so I entitled it Mystery Man 2. And very interesting chart of a very interesting individual who I had a great interest in. Let's look at the chart again. Keeping in mind, well, let me go back, just make one more further comment about Adele's chart. I was using this chart because the influences on the Lagna Lord are, as you'll see if you go back and look at that chart, are almost entirely benign in the sense that her Lagna Lord, I'm talking about Adele's chart, her Lagna Lord Saturn goes to a good house in the sign of a benefic, aspected by that benefic, and aspected by both the Yoga Karaka benefic Venus. The only blemish on this otherwise beautiful picture with regards to the Lagna Lord was Rahu and Ketu were influencing the 1-7 axes. So that is there, but otherwise it's a wholly favorable Lagna Lord. It just really helps boost up the quality of that chart. That's why I wanted to discuss it. Now here we have the chart of a man. You'll see that he was from India. Currently not with us. He was born back in 1909. And again, focus in and see the distinctive features, the significant features of the chart. What stands out to you? Anyone?
Rohit?
It is the Maharaja Yoga.
Very good, Rohit. Well, it's gratifying that people seem to be absorbing the lessons. And what makes this a magnificent Maharaj Yoga?
It's 1-5 combination in the 5th house.
Well, that makes it the Maharaj Yoga, but what makes this particularly significant, a particularly powerful, a particularly magnificent Maharaj Yoga?
It's true benefics, and they are and Venus is in its own house. Mercury is in a sign of Venus, which is a friend. So
that you keep going though. Take a look at Mercury's degrees. What else do you notice about it?
Mercury is Vargottama.
Yes. And what happens to Venus in the Navamsha?
Venus and Mercury are actually in an exchange. 5-9 exchange.
Do you see it?
It's brilliant.
It's absolutely brilliant. One more factor makes this a very special Maharaj Yoga. If anyone can see and identify that.
Well, these planets are also Hatha Yoga.
Sorry, Katrina, say again.
These two planets, Venus and Mercury, are also involved in Saraswati Yoga. So this.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But what makes both the Maharaja Yoga and the Saraswati Yoga, since Jupiter also falls in an Yes, that's what I wanted people to see. Whenever the moon's in the Lagna, you have this situation where, of course, any yogas present in the chart are going to repeat from this angle. Now see it from Surya Lagna. What do you notice, Ekaterina, from Surya Lagna?
Well, they're the 19th.
Dharma Karma Adhipati Yoga.
The Venus Mercury combination becomes the best combination for Virgo Lagna. Lords of 9 and 10 in the second house of sacred knowledge orally transmitted. But what I wanted you to notice is that Saraswati repeats from Surya Lagna.
Yes. Also.
Right? So quite an extraordinary configuration that we have here. I just again want to highlight the strength of the yogas, the Saraswati Yoga and the Maharaja Yoga that comes about by the condition of Venus and Mercury. Venus's condition being in its own sign and Mercury's condition being Vargotama, but the way in which these two planets exchange in the Navamsha, again, giving results as if they were placed in their own charts. Not only do they exchange, but it's an exchange between 5 and 9, with Venus now the Yogacaraka planet, and again, Mercury Vargotama. It's really remarkable. But then now look at the components of the Saraswati Yoga. Look at the third component. What do you know, Ekaterina, I'm going to ask you this directly. What do you notice about Jupiter there?
In Rashi.
Navamsha.
Navamsha, it's in the Aquarius. It's the sign that is considered strong.
Yes, Sri Rao used to always, whenever he saw Jupiter in Aquarius, he would always mention that, and I forget what Shastra he was quoting, but said that it always gives its results very strongly, almost like an exalted planet. But what other condition in the Navamsha contributes to... I gave it away there. I started to say Dick Bala. So I can't emphasize enough that when you see the truly spectacular kind of results that the yogas in the Shastras talk about, so often you'll see those results, they'll seem like an exaggeration, they'll seem like a hyperbole. But what's being expressed in the Shastra is when the yoga is giving its results in its absolute optimum condition, which is something actually you don't see that quite often. You only see it when the constituent planets are in these really sort of exceptional conditions, not just in the Rashi, but then also in the birth chart. I'm sorry, also in the Navamsha, which is what you see here. And now, what do you notice about all of these planets in the Dashamsha?
Jupiter exalted.
Jupiter exalted. What else?
In 9th house, 5th Lord in 9th house.
First of all, they all fall in the trine houses. They all fall in the trine houses. And yes, Jupiter Venus is giving a Raja Yoga here, since it's the combination of 5 and 7. But again, look at the planets. What's good about this Venus? Where does Venus's strength come from here? Exchange with the moon. You see? And now where does Mercury get its strength from?
Directional strength.
Directional strength. look at all three of these planets composing the Maharaj Yoga and the Saraswati Yoga in these three divisions.
And aspected by Mars, Lagna Lord, Jupiter with Venus.
Yes, all in the trine houses. This chart, when I was first looking at it, you know, I just got thrilled. And when I reveal who this individual is and tell you a little about them, you'll understand why. But it's really, really extraordinary from this standpoint. And again, the reason I'm talking about all this is because Mercury is the Lagna Lord, right? We're talking about planets related to the Lagna Lord, their condition, their overall disposition, and their the yogas that they participate in. Of course, there's another major yoga here that we haven't talked about yet. Somebody want to identify it that contributes to this picture?
The depositor of Mercury is Venus in his house itself. I don't remember what that is called.
No, but you're on the right track here. This gives, well, when the dispositor of the Lagna Lord is falling in an angle or trine and in its own sign, this is called Parvata Yoga, right? Mountain yoga. It could be a yoga that increases a person's significance. It's a yoga specifically related to the Lagna and the Lagna Lord. And I mentioned it in the article, The Pillar of Life. So good for you, Rohit. Virtual chocolate to you for providing that answer. It's one of the things I was looking for. But
and to
there's an
Girish.
even more. Sorry?
Chocolate alert for Girish as well.
Girish as well. Very good. And now, but there's even just a more obvious yogi here that contributed to this. Yes, Epicurene.
It repeats from Chandra to Surya Lagna.
Yes. So Gajikesari Yoga is influenced by all. Gajikesari Yoga exists from all three perspectives. You know, of course, it's from the moon, but then, you know, for Gajikesari Yoga to truly give its best results, it has to repeat. That is, Jupiter has to fall in an angle, again, from the birth Lagna. Now, ideally, it would also be under the influence more of natural benefics directly. Here, the influence of natural benefics comes through dispositorship, because it's disposited by the Venus-Mercury combination, which, of course, gives the major Maharaja Yoga and also Saraswati Yoga. And, of course, we look for Jupiter's strength in this case, which we already talked about, given its placement in the Dashamsha and the Nalamsha. What is the blemish on all of these yogas? What is the blemish on all of these yogas?
The aspect of Mars.
Correct. You know, Mars aspects both onto the Lagna, 4th house aspect, onto the Lagna Lord, 8th house aspect, and of course it's influencing or having an aspect on all the yogas that we talked about, the Maharaja Yoga, the Saraswati Yoga, the Parvata Yoga, and the Gajikesari Yoga. All, you know, get influenced by Mars, but in the case of, you know, Jupiter and its component in these yogas, also by Saturn. But what do you notice about this Saturn as well? Anybody notice anything special about this Saturn?
Saturn is Vargotama.
Saturn is Vargotama. And of course, you know, for anyone with Gemini Lagna, it is rather a, you know, it's got two sides to it in that it rules both the 9th, the best trine, but of course it also rules the 8th. It is said to give its results more strongly based on its Mula Dracona sign, depending upon its associations, right? Its associations with, you know, Jupiter here, the 10th lord itself, is fine, but of course the association with Mars, which is the most problematic planet for Gemini, because it rules, you know, both the 6th and the 11th, is something of a blemish. Now, what do you make of the Jupiter-Saturn combination? Anyone? What do you make of this combination? The Jupiter-Saturn combination.
Let me shriek on this time.
Okay.
There's one thing I want to highlight. Of course, the Jupiter Saturn combination is a Kendra and Kona lot combination.
Yes, but
But it's normally not the best combination for this Lagna because Saturn has the blemish of 8th Lord and
okay.
the Maraka
Good.
and
So
also has Kendra dosha.
very good. You're displaying a very, very good understanding of what Parashar says about this combination from for Gemini. He actually goes out of his way, if you've read my article, Golden Keys to Jyotish, to highlight where the mere combination of Jupiter and Saturn will not give Raja Yoga. Now, that's oftentimes misunderstood. It doesn't mean that the combination can't give Raja Yoga. It just means that just them being connected together won't give the Raja Yoga. What, in this case, why does it give a Raja Yoga, even though it may not be of the superior sort?
Lina?
Anyone?
Let me try. Saturn is placed in Jupiter's house and aspected by Jupiter.
That helps.
And 9-10
Okay.
connection. And Saturn is Vargotama.
Very good. Okay, so Saturn by itself is capable of giving Raja Yoga here without it being combined with Jupiter because it's the 9th Lord and the 10th, right? So it's Raja Yoga by placement, 9th Lord in the 10th. And in this case, with Jupiter, the 10th Lord placed in a Kendra in mutual aspect with Saturn, this is a configuration, a picture that does produce Raja Yoga involving these planets for this particular Lagna. So very good answer. Very good answer by that gentleman. I compliment him on his understanding. Okay, so anything else that people want to highlight? What are some other additional good features of this chart? Anything else?
There's just there's one thing that I wanted to highlight is that obviously Jupiter rules the strongest angle and that Saturn rules the strongest trine. And not only that, in the Navamsha, they're in an exchange.
Very good, Rohit. Very good. Again, we didn't highlight this when we're talking about the kind of strength that Jupiter has before. I compliment you, Rohit, for seeing this. So Jupiter is not only getting directional strength in Navamsha, it's involved in an exchange. It's in Aquarius, which we've highlighted. And of course, Saturn is Vargotama. So this is not a, as you can see. The other thing I want to highlight is that people haven't mentioned it. We have all the grahas, all the non-chaya grahas are falling in either angle or trine houses. You see that? And then what do we notice here about Rahu and Ketu? Anyone?
Exalted.
They are in their exaltation sign. So I would be highly surprised if anyone gets this, but does anyone have any idea whose chart this is?
It has to be a preacher.
A preacher. Why do you say that, Rob? Yeah, I mean, you're not that far off, but why would you say that?
The 5th house is the house of people who are who have following. So his 5th house is very strong, and then Saturn, because of the Dharma Karma Adhipati Yoga, and Jupiter obviously being part of that, the religious aspect comes into play. So based on that, a religious preacher who had a huge following, I mean, that is what I would say.
Well, that's a first of all, just a moment. First of all, I compliment you for going out on a limb and making a conjecture that way, and the basis of it is not unsound. The 5th house rules one's shishya, right? One's disciples. I think that's what you meant by following, and so he wasn't a preacher per se, but when I reveal his background, you'll understand why I say that you're not way far off. Arun, we have other comments?
Yes, William Morris is saying it's B.V. Raman, and Aravind was saying Vivekananda. And I know that Vivekananda is not correct, at least.
Well, no, but what I think people are seeing is that this person may have, being from India and given what we've seen about the Saraswati yogas, they were very involved in Vedic knowledge, very involved in Vedic knowledge. It's not the chart of B.V. Raman. But before I reveal whose it is, how would we assess, what would be one of the ways we assess intelligence or intellectual prowess in a chart? How would we look at that? What factors would we evaluate? Anyone?
We'd look at Jupiter.
Jupiter. Well, go ahead, Katrina.
Yeah, we also look at fifth house.
Yes. In terms of the planet, we always start on the level of planetary karakas. Mercury and Jupiter, in particular, are going to be very important. Mercury is Bud, or the intellect, and both relate, and Jupiter relates to jnana, higher wisdom and knowledge. And so anyway, intellectual capabilities will, on this level of the planets, the moon also becomes important here. But the ancient Shastra gives the word D-H-I, which means intelligence, specifically as it relates to the fifth house. And of course, in Parashara Hora, the word Viveka, which means intellectual discrimination, is used with regards to the fifth house. And so you see how extraordinary all these factors for intelligence are with regards to this chart. All what we said about the condition of Mercury and Jupiter, of course, the chart is ruled by an intellectual Rashi, Gemini, and so the intelligence of the man is highlighted here. So without keeping you in suspense any longer, and some of you may not even have heard of this individual, I'm going to go
Aurobindo.
Aurobindo, Sri Aurobindo, that's a good guess. It's not the case. This is the chart of a man named Vimuri Ramamuri Shastri. Now, some of you may recognize it in the Jaini courses that I'm teaching, because I've mentioned his name. Sri Rao will have mentioned his name in his book, Predicting with Jaimi's Karakamsa and Manduka Dasha, because he refers to this man as his unseen, unmet Jaimini Jyotish Guru. Now, some of you have heard this story, some of you have not, so I'll briefly tell it. But this man was quite a legendary predictor. He only used the Jaimini system. He didn't use the Parashari system at all. He actually would claim that the Jaimini system was a far superior system than the Parashari system. And when Sri Rao began to hear of this man lived in Andhra Pradesh, which is an area of India where, kind of been the seat of Jaimini astrology. He would, when he heard that somebody was going in the area where this man lived, he would actually hire them to go get a consultation with Vimuri, providing them with their horoscope, because Vimuri had the extraordinary practice of giving his writings in prediction, along with notes and even calculation of dasha as to the basis of his prediction. And so Sri Rao wanted to see these because he was, trying to understand the Jaimini system at that time. And in that sense, he learned from Vimuri. He was, as it were, sort of re-engineering his predictions, kind of working backwards to see how he came to the conclusions that he had. If given an accurate horoscope, particularly an accurate Navamsha, his predictions were astoundingly accurate, apparently. The story is told, it's an interesting story, that one time an astrological skeptic brought him a horoscope and asked him to interpret it, and within a few minutes he said, "This is not the horoscope of a human being, it's the horoscope of an animal," which actually turned out to be correct. Another story is told that a man brought the horoscope to him, and Vimuri said, this person has passed away a couple of months ago from an abdominal tumor or condition, and the man confessed it was the horoscope of his wife who had recently died. Just to give you an idea of this person's astrological ability, his memory was said to be just absolutely phenomenal, where he could quote hundreds and hundreds of sutras of Jaimini, both from the original sutras and also in ancient commentarial literature that probably doesn't even, or that maybe only exists within certain families and libraries that most people don't even know where these texts exist. He was born. What dasha was he was born in? Does anybody can see what dasha he was born in here? What dasha was he born in?
Lena?
How do we see that? Lena?
Ardra dasha, Rahu. Ardra dasha.
Well, he was born in Ardra. His moon is in Ardra Nakshatra, which is ruled by who?
Yes. Yes, but yeah, I meant that.
Yes, I think you meant ruled by Rahu, right?
Yes.
And of course, we see an exalted Rahu, but whose results does Rahu give?
Venus.
Venus, of course. He was born into a traditional, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Vedika Brahmin family, traditional Vedika Brahmin family, and he was therefore at a very young age started to receive instruction in the ancient Sanskrit sacred texts. And I believe by the time he reached like the 4th grade, he was sent away as in kind of the traditional way to the Gurukulam, it's kind of being sent away to the boarding school with the Guru, where he apparently really shined, and he just absorbed, became an expert in Sanskrit, Veda and Vedanga, and showed particular prowess and abilities with Jyotish, which is what he then ended up pursuing. So, we had just some portion of remaining dasha that he was born in, starting with Rahu, of course, followed by Jupiter, right? So everything we've said about Jupiter gets activated in the 16-year Jupiter period, followed by what? The 19-year Saturn period, and then the best of the dashas would have been his Mercury Mahadasha, which would have followed that. I believe he was in that dasha by the time of his mid-40s, and it's activating all the marvelous yogas in his chart, and he was an extraordinary Jaimini astrologer. So, any questions about this?
None.
Okay, we shall move on then to another mystery person that I wanted to talk about. And again, why am I showing you this chart again? This is an example of, again, influences on the Lagna Lord, that some of which are very, very good, but there are some blemishes here as well. So in the case of Adele, we didn't see any very strong blemishes, just the Rahu in the first year. We have the aspect of the 6th Lord Mars, both onto the Lagna and the Lagna Lord.
Mark, I have a question about Adele's chart. Adele's moon, 6th Lord in 10th house, debilitated and in the worst Gandanta.
Right.
How would that affect her?
No, I prefer not to address this at the moment, Lena, because I want to get through what I want to. We can maybe talk about that privately. That's all right. But I just want to make sure I'm able to cover all the material I want to do today. So let's actually now focus on this chart. And you'll see that it's not a contemporary figure, that this person was actually born in the 18th century. He was born at the end of the century, born in 1797. But he is quite a famous individual. And you'll recognize the name if and when I reveal it to you. You can see he was born in Vienna, Austria. That maybe give you a little clue. But let's now just focus on the, again, distinctive and critical features of this, significant features of this chart. What strikes you?
The malefic aspect on the Lagna.
So, right, Rohit, again, in keeping with my article, we see all malefic influence, not exclusively, but we see Saturn and Rahu in the first house, and it's getting the aspect of Mars. Again, it is a Gemini Lagna, so Saturn here is being the ninth lord, and of course, Mars is a pretty malefic sixth lord, right? So that immediately would clue you in. I mean, what kind of yoga would we call that?
I couldn't get it.
I'm asking you, we've got Saturn as the eighth lord with Rahu in the first house, and we've got Mars aspecting onto this combination. What kind of yoga do we call that?
Going for a chocolate, Nicola and Jyotish say Arishta Yoga.
Yes, of course. You know, it's an Arishta Yoga. Remember, combinations that involve with the natural malefics and lords of houses, trick houses, 6, 8, 12, is what produces the kind of Arishta yogas that can be particularly challenging with regards to health, but also, you know, other types of misfortunes. Again, we have Saturn here playing a dual role as both a Mula Trikona ninth lord, but also as the eighth lord. And so, you know, this combination here, from one angle, I just want to emphasize from one angle, is most definitely gives an Arishta yoga, and it's going to highlight potential difficulties, health problems, right? Okay, what else? I mean, obviously that's not the whole story. But what is the most significant feature of this chart? Anybody see this? The most significant feature.
Saturn-Mercury exchange.
Who's saying this?
Nicola.
Nikolai, very good. I would agree with that. You see here a very powerful exchange between the first and the ninth lords, but then now see it from Chandra Lagna. It again becomes a exchange. It becomes an exchange between 1 and 5. So yes, this is a very distinctive feature of this chart, and of course, getting back to that empowers Mercury and Saturn to give their results rather powerfully in terms of any yogas that they're configured in. Is there anything about this Saturn that makes that particularly so besides the exchange? Anyone?
Yes, Lena?
Saturn is exalted in Navamsha with Venus.
Beautiful, beautiful, Lena. So we have this Venus-Saturn combination also for this chart. And again, the planets involved are quite strong by virtue of their Navamsha position. We have Saturn in its exaltation sign and Venus in its own sign. Is there any other factor that you might see in another divisional chart that enables Saturn to give its results very strongly?
I will take Roberto this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wanted to say there was a Raja Yoga between Saturn being the trine lord and Rahu being in the first.
Good, Roberto. You know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at this combination of Saturn and Rahu in the first in a mutual glance with Venus in the seventh. Actually, Prashrahora in its chapters on Raja Yoga identifies the 5-9 combination, even though it's not an angle trine combination. It identifies the 5-9 combination, conjunction or mutual glance, as being one that also gives Raja Yoga type effects. But of course here, Rahu, like we learned in the one article, acts like a Kendra lord, and it will give its results as if it was a lord of a Kendra here. And by virtue, as Roberto was pointing out, by virtue of the fact that it's with two trine lords, not just one, but two trine lords, it has a Raja Yoga giving quality. So this combination is Raja Yoga giving. And again, my question is, qualifying yoga, is there anything in divisional charts that would highlight why these combinations could give the results rather strongly? We already saw that Saturn gets exalted in the Navamsha, and Venus gets exalted in the Navamsha, but what else do you see? Take a look at Dashamsha.
Okay, we have Rohit followed by Lena.
Just quickly, 2 points. Saturn falls into the 10th house of the Dashamsha.
Yes, it does, but what do you notice about its condition relative to the birth chart?
It is Vargotama.
It's Vargotama. Yeah.
And the second point that I wanted to make was the saving grace in this chart is the Lagna Lord is in the 9th house with 2 additional benefic.
Well, before we come to that point, it's an excellent point. I want to talk about it. I just wanted to highlight that Rahu is in the Lagna of the Dashamsha in the sign of a benefic. Right?
Yeah.
And coming back, what about Rahu's position in Gemini in just alone? What do we know about Rahu's position in Gemini? Anyway.
Mul-Trikona house.
Yes, some of the ancient texts give differing indications for the Mula-Trikona sign or the own sign of Rahu, but some texts give it as Mula-Trikona, some give it as own sign. But anyway, Rahu has a good placement in Gemini. It can give its results in a fairly good and strong and rather benign way, particularly if its dispositor is well situated, which it is here. But of course, again, it's with Saturn, the 8th Lord, and it's with Mars. So, what I was trying to highlight by showing you this chart, what I was trying to bring out in the article is that certain combinations from one angle can be a bad thing, an unfavorable influence, but from another angle can be giving good results. So from just the angle of these planets being natural malefics, Saturn, Rahu, and Mars influencing the ascendant, it's not a favorable at all, particularly for health issues. But in terms of certain yogas, Raja yogas, that they form and activate, they are. You see the point. Now, you mentioned saving grace, Rohit, of Mercury going into the 9th, but what else do we notice then about this Mercury?
Aspected by Jupiter and Moon.
It's conjunct Jupiter, which is like in an exalted condition in Aquarius.
Very good, Roberto. I like the answers I'm getting here, but what I wanted to highlight is that the saving grace here, or the somewhat of the saving grace, or a counterbalancing influence with so much malefic influence on the Lagna, is Jupiter is both with the Lagna Lord and aspecting onto the Lagna Lord, and it's not retrograde. Recall my mentioning in the article that if this influence of Jupiter on the Lagna Lord comes from a retrograde Jupiter, you can't expect the protection that it gets normally. And of course, Venus, both a natural benefic for this Lagna and a good lordship, has the 5th trine lordship, is also aspecting onto the Lagna. So the reason I'm showing you this example, it's a very mixed picture of influence of all the natural benefics, but also the best of benefics, both on the Lagna Lord. Right? People see that? What other yogas are evident here, connected to the Lagna? Anyone? What other yogas are present here connected?
I'll take Arvind.
Yes, Arvind?
I was about to say the Jupiter onto the Lagna and Venus. You already mentioned that.
Okay, but let me just, I'm asking what other, one of the points I was making in the article is when it's helpful to strengthen Lagna Lord when there are other powerful yogas in the Lagna itself, good favorable yogas, or that the Lagna Lord is configured in good favorable yogas, as we saw in the chart of the Murray. What, favorable yoga is Mercury additionally connected to here?
Okay,
obviously.
Georgie followed by Nicola.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a yoga.
Right, it's a Gajikesari yoga, which again has to be qualified. Now in this case, Jupiter Go ahead. Did you have further comment? I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Did you have further comment that way?
Well, I mean, obviously, mimicry is a natural benefic, so qualification is there, I guess. Yeah.
Very, very good. Very good. So you're bringing in the fact that the stipulation that it's better Gajikeshwara Yoga if it's coming under the influence of another natural benefic, which it is here. And we saw Mercury, how its strength gets derived from the exchange it's involved in. And the Gajikeshwara Yoga is falling in a good house. The lordships of the planets of the Gajikeshwara Yoga, Moon rules the second, which is more like a neutral house, but Jupiter rules both the 10th and the 7th. But what other kind of yoga does Mercury and Jupiter form here?
Nicola? Okay.
Jupiter and Mercury form a Raja Yoga, being the house lords for 1, 4, 10, 1, 4, 7, and 10, all conjunct in the 9th house. But I'm also interested about the fact that the 9th house is hemmed between Mars and Sun, and whether that would qualify as a Papakatara Yoga.
Now you go to the head of the class. Who's speaking there? Who's speaking there?
Me at the bottom. Hi.
Hi, but your name again? I'm sorry.
Nicola.
Oh, Nicola. Oh, wonderful, Nicola. Excellent answer. First of all, I want people to see that the Mercury-Jupiter combination, though it doesn't form the best Raja Yoga, because they're both get this Kendra Adipati dosh, the blemish of benefics loading angles, it still is a triangle combination for anybody. And of course, Jupiter as the 10th lord in the 9th by itself gives Raja Yoga by placement. But yet another thing that influences these yogas in the 9th house, including the Lagna lord, is what Nicola pointed out, which is that there is hemming of the 9th house, which includes the Lagna lord. Mars is on one side, and the mild malefic, the sun. It's not the worst hemming, it's not Mars and Saturn, but now we see those malefic influences on the Lagna, and then also the hemming of the Lagna lord. So this has implications with regards to this individual, their health, and potentially even their longevity. Those are all important factors to see. So again, the reason I'm showing this horoscope, it is such an admixture of both favorable and unfavorable factors related to the Lagna. It's not as if each of them cancel each other out. They actually are all going to express themselves, in the individual's life. Yes, Lena, go ahead.
Is there Parichatra Yoga when Lagna Lord is positive in Navamsha and its dispositor is an honor exaltation sign? Is it helping a lot?
I don't believe so. Okay.
No?
I don't believe it fulfills all the conditions. If you go back and you look at all the conditions, that necessary, I think there's 3 different conditions that let me come back to that though. All right. I'd have to look at that further. It's not a thought that I had when I was originally looking at this horoscope myself. Well, for what I want to highlight is you see the position of the moon again, people. What dasha were they born in? What was the dasha at birth, and approximately, what was the balance of dasha? Whose nakshatra is the moon in? Anyone?
Jupiter.
It's in Jupiter's nakshatra, right? Which goes up until, right, Purvabhadra, which goes up to what degrees? Beginning of Pisces. Correct, Lena. It goes up to 320. First Navamsha of Pisces goes up to 320. So this person was born in the Jupiter dasha, but maybe just had 4, maybe 5 years, maybe less, of balance of dasha. So, of course, at a relatively young age, they moved into their Saturn major period. Right? Now, before I go further, In one of the articles that we've that I've published thus far as a part of this subscription program, I was giving a lot of combinations that could give rise to a certain inclination. Does anyone recognize these in this chart? What specifically does so a lot of the factors in this person's chart and the periods they were running early in life, what does it incline them towards? Anybody have any thoughts about that?
Not yet.
Okay, let me give you another hint. It was the first article. Still no responses?
I'm keeping the chocolates to myself.
Okay.
Nicola is saying authorship, writing.
Yes. Why don't you invite him to come on and explain what he's seeing?
Oh, sorry. She's already down at the bottom on the screen.
But can we have her speak?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead, Nicola.
It was just a guess, really, but the conjunction of Jupiter and Mercury together in the ninth house would be really strong, and then Saturn aspecting both the third house and being the ninth lord, that together that would give quite a strong authorship direction.
Well, it was a very good guess. You know, I highlighted, you know, the fifth house, fifth lord, and then the fifth from the fifth, which would be the ninth and the ninth lord, as being periods that can bring authorship, right? And of course, we've talked about, you know, Mercury and Jupiter being the karakas of these planets, and the strength of Mercury. Of course, after he would have run his 19-year Saturn period, he was going to run his Mercury period connected with Jupiter, another planet, another karaka. And in general, which house rules creativity? Which house rules creativity? Nicola, could you answer that question, or what's your thoughts about that?
The third house is the house of the hand, which I guess would be the skill, but then the fifth house is creativity itself.
Yes, the fifth house is really, you know, obviously fifth house produces children, but you know, another type of creation is, you know, anything that you know, the individual creates, which so it's the fifth house. So again, we see Saturn here in a mutual glance with Venus. So the Saturn period is really going to bring out creativity, and could express itself in a type of authorship. And again, I want to highlight how strong these planets are in the Mamsha. This really adds a tremendous strength to the yogas and any kind of results that they produce. And of course, we already highlighted Saturn's Vargotama position in the Mamsha. And you know, even where you see where Mercury and Jupiter fall, they fall in the ninth house. Fifth from the fifth, they aspect onto the third house, another you know, house associated with writing and so on. So, but that's just from the Parashari angle. For those of you who are have some facility with Gemini, what might you see here that would also indicate a type of authorship from the Gemini angle, and how would we look at that? Anyone?
Roberto?
Roberto?
All right, I'm going to take Ekaterina.
Ekaterina, go ahead.
From Gemini point of view, we can look at comes to Lagna. We see that the Atma Karaka is moon, and in Navamsha it's in Gemini.
Gemini.
If we look in first in Navamsha, in the house from from moon, from Karakamsha, we see Venus.
Right. What else?
So this could be one factor.
What additional thing do we see we got with happening under the Jaimini from the same part of Jaimini of the fifth house of Navamsha?
Yes, but if we see this if we see the position of Karakamsha in Rashi, the fifth house from there, the fifth house from Gemini, is aspected, Libra, is aspected by Moon, Mercury, and Jupiter. So fifth house is really strong. Yes, it produces author, successful.
Well, first of all, congratulations on seeing this. Let me just kind of review and maybe add to what you were saying. The planet with the highest degrees is the moon. It falls into Gemini and Navamsha. That becomes the Karakamsha Lagna. Applying that Lagna in the Navamsha itself, remember that the factors that bring authorship according to the Jaimini Sutras is moon, Jupiter in particular.
I think we lost Mark's image for
Swamsha, that's referred to, but it has Venus in its own sign with an exalted ninth lord from there. And you also get the Jaimini aspect of Jupiter from Taurus, the fixed sign Taurus, onto the movable sign Libra using Jaimini Rashi Drishti. Now that's just the Navamsha. Coming now to the birth chart, using Gemini as it's both the birth Lagna and Karakamsha Lagna, we see the influence of a very strong Venus onto that itself, but then the fifth house from there becomes Libra. And again, using Jaimini aspects, we have the moon, Jupiter, and Mercury, all authorship producing planets aspecting onto the fifth house from Libra. So both from the Parashari point of view and the Jaimini point of view, this chart shows actually tremendous potential for a type of authorship. Now, amongst all these grahas, in either case, who's the strongest? Amongst all these grahas that are potentially showing this authorship potential, both from the birth chart, and from the Jaimini, both from the Parashari and the Jaimini point of view, which planet gets highlighted as the strongest? What would people say about that?
So we want to take somebody who hasn't answered so far.
Good. Who would that be?
How about Jean or John or Christine, Nikolai, Radhika? Anyone?
Anyone have an answer about that?
All right. So far,
anyone at all?
Okay, Lena.
Yes, Lena.
Let me try. I think Saturn with Venus.
Yes, so obviously Venus, being in its own sign, as being one of the benefics that's producing. Saturn's exalted, but it's the benefics in particular that produce the authorship, and so Venus's influence here as the fifth lord of both charts, or both from the Karakamsha Lagna and the birth Lagna, and falling in its own sign Libra in Navamsha. And so, what among the arts, what does Venus in particularly rule? Anyone?
Lena?
Drama. Drama.
Well, I wouldn't specifically highlight Venus as drama, no, but certainly, because
drama, love.
How about music and dance?
Well, music in particular, okay? Music in particular. So now does anyone have any idea who this person might be?
Somebody from visual arts, Mozart?
So, because Vienna is being highlighted, the guess of Mozart's, it was a contemporary of Mozart's, but it wasn't Mozart's.
All right.
Good guess, though.
I was just speaking on behalf of all the participants.
Oh, I see. Okay. This is the chart of Franz Schubert. Franz Schubert. What's remarkable about him is that, well, really tragic in certain ways about him, is that he died before the age of 32. See? Now, you know, in my advanced Jaimini course, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Jaimini methods for doing a quick and dirty sort of assessment of longevity. One would find that this chart shows what's called the short span of life, unfortunately for the musical world. But, you know, he was such a prodigy and was started, and so the authorship that he was involved in, folks, is that he was composing music. This is why I kept using the phrase, a type of authorship. And he was enormously prolific this way, enormously prolific. In 1 year, he produced 150 pieces of music. And it was all types of music. It was symphonic music. It was music for, you know, quartets, that is for like chamber music. And it was vocal music. He was a vocalist himself, particularly as a child. And he, at one point, was writing 10 songs a day, if you can imagine. And just enormous output in his very young life. And he started composing at an extremely young age. You know, we talked about him having moved into his Saturn major period, you know, relatively soon, might have been around age 4 or 5 or something like that. And his musical genius really started to express itself during that time. Those of you who have seen the movie Amadeus, which is about the life of Mozart, and in particularly the envy that the leading musician of the Viennese court at that time had for Mozart, this man named Salieri. So he himself, Mozart, was coming from a family that was, you know, not an aristocratic family, didn't have much financial resources, but this man came to, you know, Franz Schubert came to the attention of this man Salieri, who kind of, you know, became his protege, and he, you know, he was his patron, and he was, you know, given a very fine musical education starting at a very young age within the, you know, the most prominent Viennese school of music at that time. As a result of that, this is part of the kind of the Dan Yogas kicking in there, not necessarily giving him, you know, personal wealth, but, you know, giving him patronage that enabled him to develop and grow in his musical career. Quite an extraordinary life that was cut short by, you know, severe health problems. Actually, it was thought to be that he probably died of a combination of mercury poison, which was used as a treatment at that time for syphilis. And it seems apparent that he might have been in what's called the tertiary stage of syphilis at the time when he died, as I said, before the age of 32. He actually died in the major period of Mercury, sub-period of Moon. Who can tell me why a sub-period of Moon becomes eligible for giving this result?
Rohit?
Moon is the second lord with the seventh lord, Jupiter. So it becomes a marker.
Quite correct, Rohit. So Mercury here, the other side of this Mercury Moon Jupiter combination is that you know, both the Moon and Jupiter become eligible for bringing the death. They become marakas or killers. And of course, you know, it's the kind of like paradoxical condition of this Mercury here in certain ways. But the hemming that Nicolau mentioned is significant this way as to the health problems that the Mercury period brought. And of course, whose nakshatra is Mercury in? We have to see this. And I emphasize over and over again that to see what kind of result a Mahadasha Lord will give, we have to see who the nakshatra Lord is and the kind of results that it gives. Whose nakshatra is Mercury in? Anyone?
No answers yet.
We must be able to see the degrees of a planet. We must be able to see which nakshatra.
Okay, we have Jean saying Rahu.
Jean, you go to the head of the class. Very good. It's in Sarabhisha Nakshatra, ruled by Rahu. So the point that I'm making about this is that, you know, it brings us back to some of the results that Mercury is going to give is the results of Rahu. And it gives Raja Yoga, as we talked about. But, you know, because it's also part of the afflictions and giving also the result of the 8th Lord, not just the 9th Lord. This is the period that some very severe health problems developed. That venereal disease is actually sort of an 8th house indication. Syphilis was an incurable disease at that time, and it killed him, which was a real tragedy because he had such musical genius that had he lived another 30 years, God knows of the kind of works that he would have produced. Even to this day, his works are among those most performed by modern day orchestras. But now coming back to, I told you there was this one period where he produced 150 pieces of music in 1 year. This was in the Saturn Mahadasha. Can anyone guess what the sub-period is? This is the last question I'm going to ask you today. Whoever answers this question gets the prize. Which sub-period within Saturn major period where this enormous production happened? And you have to sort of explain why this particular sub-period was extraordinary this way. Who would like to win the prize and answer that question?
Bumper prize. All right, we'll give it to Katrina. All right, we'll give it to Katrina.
Take it away, Ekaterina.
Well, I think that it is Saturn K2.
Saturn K2, and what would be the basis of your prediction?
Well, first, in Russia they are neutral, so they are connected. But more important is that in the Samsha, if we see from dasha Lagna Saturn, K2 is in the 10th house.
Yes. So, Ekaterina, this is a really excellent answer. And I'm going to give you the honorary bumper prize because of the very broad, strong basis and explanations for it. But I'm afraid that wasn't the sub-period that I was particularly referring to. Although you're close, and when you hear the answer, you'll understand why.
Saturn
Jupiter? No, no, I'm sorry. Although that certainly was a very strong period as well. Let me give you a hint, since you're on the right track here. I've emphasized planets in the the answer's in the D10. Let me just say that. I'm not going to say any more. The answer's in the D10.
Rahu.
Lena, Rahu. The answer is Rahu. Yes.
And she shares a bumper prize with Jean Sando.
Very good, Jean. Now, why would you say Rahu, Lena? Why would you say?
In the time in Lagna, Rahu is with Saturn in Lagna. That plays like a Saturn and like a Mercury role. And the Samsa also is in Lagna, which is a very important event. And Mercury with Mercury with.
Well, let's just leave it at that. But I think you were alluding to something that's very important to understand here that I've referred to. I think it was in my articles where I was talking about Rahu Venus and Venus Rahu. In that article, I was talking about the conditions under which the nodes can give Raja Yoga, which of course they either have to be in an angle or a trine and then connected with the opposite lord. If they're in an angle house, they have to be with a trine lord. If they're in a trine house, they have to be with an angle lord. We saw earlier how both Rahu and K2, and that's why K2 was a very good guess, Ekaterina, qualify for this. That is, they give Raja Yoga by their association. But what I also have mentioned is that, interestingly enough, they give the Raja Yoga even more powerfully than the Graha itself. They give it in kind of an exaggerated sort of way. I've referred to, there's this shloka in Parashara that is talking about this. It uses the word prabalao, which means, very strongly. And that's why I use the word in an exaggerated sort of way. So this is what happens when he runs Saturn Rahu. I mean, there was a result in Saturn Venus much earlier. It's when he first started getting the patronage that enabled him to get his musical education. But it was in Saturn Rahu, connected to both the 5th Lord and the 9th Lord, which relate to composition, to authorship, is that he had this spectacularly productive period. And it was at a very young age. He was like 18 years old, which is quite remarkable. And then what further supports this is their placements in the dashamsha. Now, Katrina, your thought that because Ketu falls in the 10th one there, again, is an excellent one. We've talked about that, the special significance of planets falling 10 from the dasha lord in the dashamsha, applying dasha lagna to the dashamsha. That's why that was a very good yes. But I've also highlighted the significance of planets in the dashamsha lagna, both their periods and sub-periods that can prove special this way. And then we've highlighted Saturn being in the 10th of the dashamsha, also Vagotama relative to the birth chart. So I know we're over time, but if people are willing to hang in there, there is one additional chart that I wanted to look at, if not, extensively, then briefly, to again make a point. Now, again, I was showing you this chart because it's a combination of so many favorable and unfavorable factors related to the ascendant. But there's one more chart that I'd like to bring up here to discuss, to make a point relative to the article that we talked about. Oh, I got to get rid of the name here. Hold on. Okay, so look at this chart, everyone. And now the only thing I really want to have you focus on is conditions related to the Lagna and the Lagna Lord. What strikes you? Anyone? Don't all speak at once.
Rohit.
Arun?
Rohit.
The first thing that obviously strikes you is that it has gone in the 6th house and it is on the Rahu Ketu axis.
Okay, so here it goes to the 6th house. And I was highlighting in my article that this alone, as like in the case of Deepak Chopra, it isn't necessarily an Arishta Yoga and isn't necessarily such a bad thing, but you're highlighting that, it's also with Rahu, right?
Yep.
And what else comes into play here that I've talked about? It's with Rahu. Now, Rahu's not it's actually in an exalted condition, but nonetheless, it's with Rahu. But what factor have I also brought into play here in terms of influences on this combination of Jupiter and Rahu? And Roberto, you and I were talking about this. Do you see what I'm saying here? Can you highlight this?
Parivartan yoga with Venus.
It's a special type of yoga.
Well, first of all, we'll come back to the fact that it's involved in exchange. That's highly significant. But I wanted to see, and maybe people won't get it. Let me just say it myself because we're running over time. I've highlighted how planets that are in a Kendra relationship with other planets are, of course, not necessarily an aspect, but they do exert an influence from each other. Particularly the ones that are closest in degrees, right? So, what are the planets and what strikes you about them with regards to that are following Kendra from this Jupiter-Rahu conjunction? Anyone?
We have Saturn.
And who else?
The Moon.
Moon and of course Mars, right?
Yeah.
So you see the influence on this Lagna Lord of the Rahu Ketu axis, but also following Kendra from a very strong Saturn and Mars, and of course, the Moon as well. So, this adds to some of the implications of a Lagna Lord in the 6th under the influence of the Rahu Ketu axis as well. Now, Lena pointed out, and here it really adds a dimension here, adds to the picture, that there's an exchange going on here between Venus and Jupiter, right? Where Venus now becomes a highly exalted planet, very close to its point of extreme exaltation. And, then you also have, the exchange happening between the 4th and the 6th house. Would this be considered a good exchange, bad exchange? What?
Venus is also in Gadanta, so that doesn't help.
Well, it's also in Gadanta. Let's leave that alone for the minute. But just would this Paladipika highlight the 4-6 exchange as being a good exchange or not?
Lena?
Which I didn't get question. Which house is it?
The exchange here is between the 4th and the 6th house, right? 4th
Yes.
Lord goes. I'm misspeaking. I'm speaking correctly. The 4th Lord Jupiter goes to the 6th, and the 6th Lord, Venus goes to the 4th, right? Is that a good exchange or not a good exchange?
Oh, well, for health, it's not good for health.
Well, I'm just talking in general. When one house lord exchanges with a Dushtana house lord, right? It's not a good thing. It brings a strong connection between those two houses and two house lords. It would not be considered in a classical sense favorable. Now see it from the Moon, Chandra Lagna. Again, would you consider this a positive, good exchange? What kind of exchange does it come from Chandra Lagna? I'll make it easier for you.
8 and 10.
You said 8-10 exchange?
Yeah, 8, 10.
So again, is that a good exchange?
No.
No. Okay. So from both angles, this exchange is not a good exchange of house lords. And so again, who's Mahadasha? Was this person born in?
Magha?
Magha, which is ruled by
Ketu.
Oh, Ketu.
Ketu, right? So at what point in the dasha was the beginning, the middle, the end, what?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it goes up, sorry? Goes up to 1320, so born towards the very end of Ketu Mahadasha. So then gets 20 years of Venus, followed by this, this person was born in 1965, followed by, of course, 6 years of Sun, then 10 years of Moon, and then 6 years of Mars. And so currently, this person is going to be in the Mahadasha of Rahu. Do you see that? Starting in 2008. And then, of course, they ran Rahu Jupiter 2011, 2013. So coming back to the original combination, the Lagna Lord with Rahu, Kendra from Saturn and Mars, right? What kind of things would you have predicted that what kind of problems that this person might have had related to health? Anybody have any thoughts about that?
Roberto? He's saying
I thought maybe a vehicle accident.
No, that's a very good guess because of the 4-6 exchange. Okay, but I want to highlight some of the significations of Rahu, the not so good significations of Rahu.
Rohit?
Did he have a blood-related problem?
You're saying that because?
Because of Mars being the eighth lord, so that's hospitalization, and I think Saturn rules the blood. So blood related, he was probably hospitalized because of blood related issues.
You know, not a bad guess, and you know, I understand your astrological logic, but basically, growing up during his Venus Mahadasha, he was actually quite a drug addict. He abused drugs, and there may have been alcohol issues as well. This is this whole combination of the Lagna Lord in Jupiter in the 6th house with Venus ruling the 6th Lord. You know, I guess what I wanted to highlight, folks, is that, you know, the text, you see an extremely exalted Venus here, but, you know, Venus for this Lagna is classified how in terms of natural benefics or malefics?
Functional malefic.
Functional malefic. Why?
Because it's the 6th Lord and the 11th Lord.
Correct. And I've seen over and over again that even a well-placed Venus can give real problems. You know, I saw a person lose a leg in their Venus Mahadasha with Sagittarius Lagna. And you know, I could cite a bunch of other things. It can create challenges. Now, it's only going to do so if you've got a basic Arishta Yoga to begin with that the Jupiter Mahadasha activates. In this case, you know, it got activated in, it activates the Arishta Yoga produced by the Lagna Lord in the 6th with Rahu. And again, these Kendra relationships from the two other malefics, Saturn and Mars, you know, basically he became very drug and alcohol addicted during his Venus Mahadasha. Now he's running the Rahu Mahadasha, and interestingly enough, he was able to overcome his addiction, and this motivated him to want to be able to be of assistance to others to rid themselves of alcohol and drug addiction. So he went back to school, obtained all the degrees and certifications, and he's now involved in doing. He's a drug and alcohol therapist. He works at a clinic specifically for drug and alcohol addiction, and works with addicts as he once was, in order to overcome his addiction. So it's turned out in a benign way where now the wounded person or the person that's suffering from the disease becomes the healer of it. So this is a very interesting thing to contemplate, given his particular chart. But I wanted to show you, I've shown you 4 charts here. The first chart was an example of a Lagna Lord without hardly any blemish at all, and with the strong influence of natural benefics. The second chart I showed you also showed a tremendous Lagna Lord and influence of natural benefics, but also some blemish, some influence of natural malefics. The fourth chart I showed you is where both are strongly influencing the Lagna Lord, but it's a very mixed picture, right? And this is more of a picture that is a little bit darker, where the influences on the Lagna Lord are not benign at all, and mostly not good. So this is and these are some of the categories of charts that I was showing you in the article itself. So this is what I wanted to discuss today, and we've gone a little over time. Hope that's not a problem for people. And we'll continue on in our Jyotish journey together. I really want to highlight everyone's participation again. I certainly enjoy it more myself when there's a lot of interaction. So I appreciate students' participation and encourage others to sign up to become panelists in future webinars. So we'll just now take any final questions before we close here for the day.
Mark, one of the questions is, does William Morris get a chocolate because he said liver for the last chart?
Did you say what? What did Will say?
William Morris said liver.
Liver. Well, I'm sure this man was, he did a lot of drinking. I'm sure his liver was affected. So, but I'm curious as to why he asked about that. If we could put him on, could he explain how he, why he gave that suggestion?
Sure. William, you're on.
Hello, William.
Good morning. Yeah, Jupiter rules the liver, and but it's also ruled by Venus, which will imply some kind of sugar disease with the liver. So alcohol and diabetes and such are all high risk.
William, it is an excellent answer, and good for you, and displays a good understanding and knowledge of the different anatomical associations between the grahas. So I don't have any specific information to give you feedback about, but it's a very, very good conjecture, and I would be highly surprised if it weren't true. It leads me to answer one additional question about this. Is let me pull up the chart again before we conclude. I need to see the dasha here. Give me a moment. So we saw here that this person, but since 2013, he's moved into Rahu Saturn. Okay, so again, we're over time, but if people don't stand, well, this is the last thing. What kind of potentials might you see for Rahu Saturn, and why? What kind of potentials would you see? And I made some predictions based on this, by the way, which is one of the reasons that I'm talking about this chart. What would be one way of thinking about this? Rahu Saturn. Anyone?
Right.
Can I answer?
Sure.
Please.
Rahu Saturn, Mark, I would say that he would be more career focused, because if you make Rahu the Lagna Lord, from there, the 10th Lord is Saturn in its own house, very strongly placed. So, and it is in the 3rd house, so he would probably have some work related to, some creative work that he might be doing at this time.
It's an excellent answer, Rohit. First of all, I'm glad you're applying dasha Lagna here. Where we now have, Rahu is an exaltation sign, right? Now the exchange becomes a favorable exchange, right? The exchange now becomes a 111 exchange, and Saturn becomes a very strong Yogakaraka planet in its move to Kona sign in the 10th. Now you also brought in the fact that from the birth of this 3rd Lord, what has happened here is that, first of all, this is, I've predicted this period and sub-period as being, one where he will elevate and he'll be effective in his career life and take on additional status, which is, to be true. One of the interesting ways that Saturn as the 3rd Lord in the 3rd house is playing itself out here is that he's gotten very into yoga, yoga asana, hatha yoga in particular, and has during this period trained as a teacher of hatha yoga, and is starting to incorporate the use of hatha. And that's exactly what is going on here. And so,
Mark,
again, yeah.
I would like to comment Navamsha chart. Saturn is also Yogakaraka in Navamsha, Libra Lagna, and in exchange Jupiter. And with exalted Venus, Lagna Lord.
It's an excellent comment, and I talked about this with him because he really wanted some discussion of his chart from a spiritual angle. So anyway, folks, I know we've gone a half hour overtime, so we probably should end now. But again, I really enjoyed everyone. That's something that we can continue. And so I give a big namaste to everyone.